Hey, it's me, Tim, and I'm going to take you along on another one of my prototyping adventures. I was messing around with a couple years ago, and I made a project for Vectric where I made these little tiny guitar ukulele type things that were like electric with a cheap piezo in them, and it was a sort of simple CNC project, like a fun little travel guitar. But the frets are kind of small. It was like a short scale, like a 19-inch scale, and difficult for big hands like mine to play. And you needed to plug it in. So if you were like traveling and you wanted to strum it, it was like kind of too quiet, by itself. So I started thinking to myself, well, how could I make like an acoustic version of this and maybe like a little bit better? Now another thing I want to do is I want to make these simple so they can be affordable, because no one's going to spend $1,000 on a cheesy little tiny guitar that doesn't really sound very good. It's just something you want to, take with you on vacation to strum on the beach, right? So I needed to approach this with a way to make it so it was inexpensive to make, which means not very labor intensive, inexpensive materials, etc., but still playable and fun. I started with a 23.5-inch scale, and I grabbed a piece of pallet wood ash that I was planting down there in the beginning, and these are all cut-offs from other guitars that I'm gluing together here, and just sort of designed this simple neck that has the fingerboard built right in with no truss rod. So that's the first big question is, at the short scale, can it handle steel strings with no truss rod? If not, we can always put nylon strings on it. I've done that in the past, and it's a lot of fun. And, again, if you're on the beach, it almost makes sense to have nylon guitars, strings. But, I want to see if we can get away with steel strings because they sound a little better. And here I'm using this little jig that I'd made to use these side mount tuners that I have. And then you have to drill in again to put a little hole in the center there. Notice that I put a block of wood in the slot so it would help with tear out, but I forgot on one side, and that's why there's so much tear out there. So there it is. That's the sort of heart of the guitar, and it was kind of interesting to put the frets right in. You can see the neck bending under the fret press, so in the future I'm probably going to have to build a little jig like a caul to hold that neck. I might even have one somewhere, and I'll get a better fret job going in. But they went in pretty well and pretty easy. This is all, inexpensive. So far I have very little time and money put into the project. But I still have to make the body, right? So if I made the neck out of scrap wood and pallet wood, just take a wild guess as to what I'm going to make the body from. Yes, you guessed it, hollow core doors. Making proper acoustic guitar bodies is time consuming. You need molds and jigs and all this stuff. And so I thought I would approach it a little bit differently, and instead of trying to make it look like a guitar, I just made this very basic shape because I thought if I did my laser kerfing trick, which you'll see in a minute and you've seen in other videos of mine, most recently the drum kit video, I could do this shape without a jig or a mold, which would be quick and easy. And I decided to put a little bit of bracing on the top, although honestly it probably doesn't need it. The idea here now is to have all these holes and all these things lined up in the CNC, and so I still have some things to fix for that, but I kind of lined that all up. And here you see the shape that I designed. I thought if I just cut a piece of door and kerfed it, it would just sort of naturally fall into that position. I did oversize that bottom and top piece a little bit to give me some room, and here I'm just sort of finalizing my measurement, and I wrote it down so in the future I'd be exactly right to go ahead and put this together again. So now this is a prototype and I'm only doing one, but it's all about trying to find practices that would make it easy to, say, do a half a dozen of these at a time. I realized after I did this that I messed the order up a little bit because I want to put this kerfing along both the top and the bottom, but since I already glued the bottom all together, that's going to make it difficult to get it in here, so I'm going to have to do some sort of tricky stuff to hold it down because I can't clamp it. What I should have done is created this loop on the back without having glued this stuff down to the back first, so then I could have just made the loop, then inserted the kerfing. It turned out to not be a big deal at all because the body is so small I was just able to use my spring clamps and reach down there and clamp them, so maybe this is the way to do it. Once that glue dried, I added some kerfing to the top and then let that sit. There is a lot of waiting between steps on making these guitars because of the way the glue has to go together, but it's not active time, it's passive time, so it doesn't really count towards the cost. And then as I glue the top on, let that sit for a little while, and now because I oversized my top and bottom, I just simply flush trim routed them right to the edge to make it all pretty. You'll notice that black line on the top of the instrument. I put that there because that's my 23.5 measurement from exactly the nut, but not accounting for, you know, any kind of a compensation that needs to be done, just to help me sort of design it in the future, but that wouldn't be there on a final instrument. And I just put a tiny cardboard shim in the neck to just give it a little bit of upward angle as it goes into the body and over the bridge that I'm about to make. The bolt-on neck makes construction easy, but what I think might be fun to do there is see if I can make some sort of simple detachment mechanism so you could take the neck off and this whole thing would very easily fit into a suitcase. I would probably buy the proper string ferrules to put in the back since I'm running the strings through here, but I didn't have any on me, so I just used washers that I recessed into the body a little bit. And then I have these little aluminum pieces that I use on my Apeiron base for string protectors, so the string isn't digging into the wood as it comes up through the body, and I just put some of those in there too. Probably not necessary, but whatever. And I use just a little bit of Total Boat Wood Honey, their new wipe-on finish, to protect it. Nothing fancy. That's all it needs. I used a little piece of corian for the nut that I have cut for just this purpose. And check out this pencil. It's just a carpenter's pencil that I actually cut in half so it's flat. And I can use that. I can lay it across the frets and just mark exactly how high my frets are, and then cut just outside that line a little bit and sand it in to fit my nut. It makes pretty quick work of that, no guessing. This isn't as dangerous as it looks because it's sped up, but you might want to keep your fingers a little further away from these blades than I do. You might get cut. It's not a bad cut, but it's a cut. Just about any piece of hardwood can be used for this floating bridge, but I use this piano key. This one is actually not a real ebony piano key. It's a maple one that's been ebonized. And there's a video I have about this little tool I have. I turn these feeler gauges into little fret saws. You can go check that out. So I roughed in this piano key quickly. I always do the outside strings first and fill in the middle, and then give it a little bit of shape. Got it to the right height. Only took a few minutes. And it's kind of cool. I like the idea that this was on a piano once and now it's on the instrument. I surprisingly only had a couple frets that were a little high, so I just did a very quick fret job on it. And now let's hear it. Well, it is a travel guitar. Now that I've used the car in the video, I can call it a business expense. Oh yeah, and I have these little gig bags that I had bought some new old stock for my little Pallet series guitars. I don't know if they're for like a kid's guitar or something, but this design fits right into this bag. Close. Go anywhere. I love prototyping this stuff in real time on the internet because I love your feedback. The days of top secret formulas and hidden laboratories are long over. So have at it. Tell me what you like and don't like about this thing. This is an idea I've been developing because I think music should be accessible and affordable to everyone. And it's very difficult for me to compete with these massive factories that make these, inexpensive guitars. And one of the ways I can do it is by finding ways to simplify the process. So this is an experiment in simplifying the process of making an acoustic instrument by using the shape that didn't require a lot of molds. It went together real easy by doing no truss rod with fingerboard built into the neck meant less work here. Because it's only a 23.5-inch scale, I think it's going to be fine. I put steel strings on it to find out. And you know, there's some things in the machining and processing that I need to work on, which is why you make prototypes, but the more I can have it done by the robots, the faster I can make it, the less expensive it is. And again, this is made out of all reclaimed recyclable materials. This is pallet wood ash for the neck, and the body is my favorite hollow core doors, which means that this is part of my hollow core door is the new Pallet series of instruments. So stick around for that. I got something kind of cool happening there. The next step is to leave it strung up and see what happens. If this does work, I see potential to make like a whole series of instruments that are based on this body. I could have ukuleles of various sizes. I could have some kind of mini acoustic bass. We could add electronics to it. I was even thinking about doing a headless version to make it even smaller with like a headless bridge down here, but that does of course add to the expense. It plays really well, like better than I expected, so we'll see what happens. Stick around, stay tuned, let me know what you think, and I'll probably be developing this a little more.